I often hear religious folks talk about how nature and life prove God is real. Look at the immense beauty of a butterfly wing. It is awe-inspiring, no doubt. Look how a spider spins its web. This truly is beyond fascinating. The spider does not understand why or how he is doing this. These abilities are pre-programmed into its neurology. Many, perhaps even most people, believe this beauty and complexity is real proof for a grand designer. If this is what you believe, I completely understand and admit I too am often compelled to question and wonder about the origins of life. But if there is a creator, let's take a more sober look at what it created. Few things are as scary and sinister as a web, where you will be trapped and injected with a paralyzing fluid and then later eaten alive. What kind of a mind would create such a thing? Or how about a wasp? It has to sting 9 precise places along the principal nerve of a caterpillar in order to paralyze rather than kill, so that the wasp larva can feast on a living host. Can you imagine creating something like this? Did a good God create these nightmarish anatomies and behaviors? Perhaps you might say, well, yeah, this is creepy and sinister, but none of these creatures actually sense fear or feel pain. I don't know. Perhaps that is a subject for debate. But look at this adorable seal pup. These little guys have a high level of cognitive ability, much like a beloved family pet. They definitely feel love, fear, and pain. But God also created the killer whale. This large mammal hunts the seal and keeps it alive for a brutal and gruesome playtime. This adorable and sentient seal will endure absolute terror and pain as it is flung through the air like a rag doll, long before receiving its final death blow. We can easily recognize how evil this nature is, and have even enacted laws that would imprison any man or woman for inflicting this kind of cruelty on an animal. Yet God created and sanctified such sinister behavior? This is straight out of a scary movie. Why would a good and loving God create the botfly? This small creature burrows into the eyeball of a large mammal, such as a lamb or a goat, in order to lay its eggs. The larva will then eat the eyeball, later to emerge from its suffering host, leaving it to die in slow, painful misery. Why would God create such a creepy and sinister creature, and with such a gruesome and violent nature? Folks, I am not here to try and convince you a creator does not exist. But in all fairness, nature cannot testify to it being a good, loving, or caring God. What kind of a sick mind would create such terror? Why would God create bacteria that causes leprosy, or viruses that enter a host, causing horrifying diseases, and break down genetic information like malware in a computer code? The results are truly terrifying. This child has AIDS, and this young boy has a tumor the size of his head. Here is a child born without skin, an agonizing existence. Now, I know there are Christians out there who will say God created life perfect, peaceful, loving, and good, and that these harmful bacteria, deadly viruses, violent instincts, and gruesome physical anatomies are all a result of our sin. I'm sorry, but sin is not a creative or intelligent being and cannot operate as a creator. If God didn't create mosquitoes, paralyzing venoms, or deadly viruses, then who did? Most Christians will immediately point a finger at that pesky devil. But here's the problem with pinning it all on a scapegoat. If the devil was created, then the Creator, God, is far, far more powerful. This means God has granted permission for the devil to physically transform, redesign, or create new life. Essentially, God has allowed the devil to become a co-creator, resulting in a horror show on Earth. Somebody had to create the Komodo dragon's poisonous bite that causes the slow, painful, and brutal death of its prey. Everywhere you look, this world is a sadistic bloodbath, and humans are no exception. A Christian God commanded stoning people to death. Nothing could be more gruesome or brutal than this. Can you imagine picking up a rock and throwing it at somebody until they are dead? Will you now try to convince me that if this God is real, he is not obsessed with gruesome violence? Not only does he promote sadistic cruelty all over the face of this planet, but he continues with this sadism into the next life, hell, weeping and gnashing of teeth, where the worm never dies, where the smoke from their torment rises up forever and ever. Can you imagine being so evil that you would torture the creatures you created? My friends, let's put all of this ridiculous theology aside and look at the reality of our situation. We live in a world where nearly every life form has to eat its neighbor in order to survive. Life is violent and gruesome, and you cannot concoct a scapegoat by blaming it all on a devil. It doesn't fly. If you choose to believe life was created by a God, then you must also realistically recognize how it is not the loving and caring being we would all hope to imagine. Such a picture does not mirror reality. I understand entertaining the idea of life being designed by a super intelligence, but to call it all good or all loving is an unreasonable and wishful delusion. Before Christianity evolved, early Jews believed God was both good and evil. Early Judaism provides us with a more realistic profile of a God that is both the dark and the light. Whereas Satan was a subject among God's court and would reason with and challenge God, such as what we find in the story of Job. Angels would do God's bidding, such as killing all of the firstborn sons of Egypt if they didn't have a red mark of blood over the doorway. Ironically, these death angels relied on a visible marker to know which children to kill. Clearly, these stories, such as talking donkeys and a man with Superman powers in the locks of his hair, are far more representative of mythology than reality. If there is a creator, it does not appear to intervene or concern itself with our welfare. God would be more likened to a turtle that lays its eggs in the sand, never to return. Your fate is random odds. The journey and hardships are yours alone. A more realistic creation model would look like this. Life was set into motion with genetic abilities to change, adapt, and evolve in a world designed for competition, where only the strongest, craftiest, or the fittest survive. Throughout Earth's history, it is very clear how species have changed or gained dominance while others die out, and natural disasters or geological changes show no mercy or prejudice. By all observable data provided for a creation model, a creator is completely indifferent to suffering, regardless of what you are, who you are, where you live, or what God you believe in. Being a Christian or an atheist will not improve or decrease your chances for receiving a deadly disease, blessings, or misfortunes. If there was a God who was concerned with humans building a structure so high that it would reach into heaven, he certainly doesn't seem concerned now that we have reached the moon, and nobody found God or heaven anywhere up there. Perhaps it is finally time for humanity to begin redefining the word God. First, by moving away from the Bronze Age profile of a mythological being with human-like emotions who communicates through burning bushes and rises up into the clouds, as if heaven were up there somewhere. If there were to be a God, nobody has correctly identified or understood what it is. Most people simply insert God into whatever gap science has not been able to answer for them. As soon as we reach an unanswered problem, God becomes more like a placeholder until science reveals more of the picture. God then gets shifted further and further back into the gaps as our knowledge increases. I suggest we try being more content with not knowing all of the answers. The mystery is part of the fun, is it not? I am also urging every believer to hold more respect for those who question or do not believe such a being exists. One thing we can know, one thing that is not a mystery, is our need for love, and it is up to us to create a better reality for ourselves. Let's love each other and not allow Christianity, Islam, or any other spiritual beliefs to divide us up. Stay strong and wise, my friends.
I don't believe in masquerades. I don't believe that you're okay. I don't believe that God will save. Only you can solve your problems. I don't care what they sold you.